DevilNeverCry.
Phantom Blade Zero has immediately found itself at the top of my most anticipated list thanks to a few comments from the developers, namely the fact that they take inspiration from games like Devil May Cry and Ninja Gaiden. The game is touted as a semi-open world action RPG that focuses on fast, frenetic action and is the complete antithesis to games that seem to be quite popular these days, which are more slow and methodical games, like games from the Souls series or even the Monster Hunter lineup. That comparison might sound dramatic, but it essentially is paraphrasing words from the developers themselves. We recently got a new look at the game thanks to Summer Games Fest in the form of a new trailer, alongside a new 20-minute demo on stage with IGN, where the developers got to talk through the game and some of the decisions they made when designing it. So let's talk about the game and my thoughts alongside it. Inspired by 90s kung fu movies, alongside the likes of games like Devil May Cry, it's no surprise that fast and frenetic action is at the forefront, but that's also been coupled with beautiful animations. When looking at games, a lot of people like to talk about flair or style, and animations certainly play a large part into this. Great animation work, beyond being visually pleasing, can also help sell impacts alongside making gameplay feel quite cathartic to go through. And they can also help add a sense of personality not just to the character you're playing as, but also the enemies that you face. One of the things that immediately piqued my interest and kind of perked my ears up when I heard them say this was the developers discussing animation cancelling during that onstage demo. As is the case with a lot of classic and contemporary game design, you'll typically have a range of actions that can come with their own set of drawbacks depending on how useful they can be. When you typically pull off a special move, either that provides a special property or simply does a substantial amount of damage, you'll typically be coupled in with recovery animations which you won't be able to cancel out of, making those moves a huge commitment. They even showcased one such attack in the form of a great big cannon to blast away the enemy. They then immediately threw in the fact that you can animation cancel out of this using gameplay mechanics to allow you to weave this attack into combos seamlessly, keeping the game's pace of combat as fast as it needs to be. Speaking of combos, Phantom Blade Zero seems to employ a similar mechanic to a lot of action games out there, the 2-button method, which allows you to weave between square and triangle to come up with different combo strings. One of the added caveats, however, is that some of these combos use a resource that needs to be managed. The resource in question being the Sha-Chi bar. If I'm being honest, when I initially saw this bar, I thought, oh no, another game that's going to be hampered by a stamina bar or a stamina system. A lot of contemporary action games seem to crib off of the Souls formula a little bit too much, and that's often why we have games that have stamina bars that really don't need them. Thankfully, it looks as though they've alleviated this problem entirely through the use of weapon switching. Being smart with the timing of your weapon switching will apparently refill the Sha-Chi bar entirely, allowing the pace of combat to not slow down to a crawl. Weapon switching coupled with animation cancelling seems to be a match made in heaven, though only time will tell just how freeform the combat system is and whether or not we'll be able to switch whenever we want or only during specific parts of combos. One interesting fact we did have confirmed, however, is the fact that the game promises to have over 30 weapons. I'm curious to know whether or not those will be 30 bespoke individual weapons that will have their own combo strings, their own attack animations, or whether or not it will be perhaps 4 or 5 different weapon class types with multiple of different weapon types being available, where they pretty much are kind of just carbon copies of each other with animations being exactly the same, only being different in their visual design. Looking at action RPGs in general, 30 weapons might not seem like much, but if it really is 30 different bespoke weapons, then there is going to be a lot to play with. They mention in the playable demo at Summer Games Fest that you'll have access to 4 main weapons and 3 secondary weapons at the same time. Sounds like plenty to sink your teeth into if combat is your thing. Moving away from offensive capabilities, the game also features a large focus on parrying, which I imagine is going to get a lot of people making comparisons to Sekiro, the game we all know somehow invented parrying. Entering the concentration mode, which automatically blocks all attacks, slowly drains the Sha-Chi bar, which is where parrying comes into play, allowing you to gain an advantageous position on an enemy provided that your timing is perfect. They even showcase the ghost step maneuver, which allows you to get behind an enemy by parrying an unblockable attack, really pushing the risk versus reward aspect of the gameplay. Moving on though, can we all agree that wall running is cool? Just regardless of where you are in life, wall running is cool, whether it's vertically, diagonally, horizontally. We just need more wall running in games. I honestly don't think there is a game out there that wouldn't be improved through the implementation of wall running in some aspect. They gave us a quick look at wall running. You'll effectively be able to run up pillars either to dodge an enemy's attack or to perhaps include wall running and aerial attacks in whatever combo that you're stringing together. It makes me wonder if they've got anything else in store in regard to using the environment to your advantage, or if it will just be wall running. Either way, the game definitely gets some brownie points for its inclusion. Beyond the combat, however, let's talk about a few other details that were recently confirmed. The first of which is the inclusion of a boss rush mode. I don't know anybody who doesn't like a boss rush mode, particularly if you're into action games or character action games. Recently, Stellar Blade had a boss rush mode added after people asked for it so many times, and it looks as though developers S-Game took note of that and decided to include one here in Phantom Blade Zero as well. S-Game have also confirmed that the game will be between 30 to 40 hours and will feature a plethora of side quests to go and tackle in its semi-open world. They go on to add that the game won't be excessively large, but that there will be multiple branching paths that you can take to help break up the monotony of traversal. Personally, I'm not surprised by the 30 to 40 hours overall playtime. It feels like a lot of action RPGs out there tend to aim for that overall number, but if that isn't enough to satiate your thirst, S-Game have gone on to confirm that multiplayer is a thing, particularly endgame multiplayer dungeons, alongside roguelike abysses, which, if the name is what it is, you'll be tackling infinite procedurally generated content. I definitely wasn't expecting multiplayer to be mentioned. It makes me wonder if you're going to be able to interact with other players in co-op when tackling enemies, cooking up all kinds of unholy combos to just decimate your enemies, and whether or not that multiplayer will extend to the game's main campaign or purely endgame content. It also feels as though that roguelike mode that they mentioned would be absolutely primed for multiplayer content too. But in the meantime, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. How long we'll be waiting though remains to be seen. Currently the game is penciled for 2024, and the game is currently playable at Summer Games Fest alongside other game shows later this year like Gamescom. Fingers crossed the game does release in 2024, I still have hope, though there is always a chance that it might slip into 2025. Overall though, thanks to the recent influx of news and gameplay, Phantom Blade Zero is no longer a game that I'm just somewhat keeping an eye on, but one that I'm very much looking forward to. And I also have my fingers crossed that they'll release a playable demo at some point. And with that, we come to the end of the video. Let me know your thoughts on Phantom Blade Zero down in the comments below. And if you're interested in more content on the game, then definitely leave a like and subscribe, as there'll be more on the way. With all that said and done, it has been me, DevilNeverCry. I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next video.